Ladies and gentlemen, my friends, let us go back to the beginning. Back to the garden. Back to the place where the first breath of life was given, where man was formed from the dust and woman was brought forth not from the ground but from the side of man. It is written that God caused a deep sleep to come upon Adam, and from his side he fashioned the woman, not from his feet that she would be beneath him, not from his head that she would be above him, but from his side, close to his heart, that she would walk beside him. And yet, something happened. The fall came. The order was broken. The harmony was shattered. The enemy whispered a lie, and that lie was received. From that moment, a war began. A war not fought with swords or armies, but a war against design, a war against purpose, a war against identity. The world speaks of independence, of breaking free, of needing no one, of standing alone. But that was never the way of the beginning. The woman was not created to be alone, nor was the man. They were formed, each with a purpose, each with a role, each with a calling. From the very beginning, before kingdoms rose and fell, before nations were formed, and before laws were written, there was a design. And a design so intentional, so intricate, that it set the foundation for all human relationships. The creation of woman was not an afterthought, not a mere addition to the world, but an essential part of the divine order. In the book of Beginnings, it is written that the Creator formed man from the dust of the earth, breathing life into him. Yet even as man stood amidst the wonders of creation, before him the rivers flowed, the mountains stood firm, the stars shone in their brilliance, something was missing. It was not the trees, not the beasts of the field, not the birds in the sky that could fulfill what was lacking. Man was alone, and it was declared that it was not good for him to be so. Then, in an act of divine craftsmanship, woman was brought forth, not from the ground as the beasts, not spoken into existence as the heavens and the earth, but from man himself. The Creator caused a deep sleep to fall upon him, and from his side he formed her. This was no random act. It was a sign, a mystery woven into the very fabric of creation. She was not taken from his head, that she would rule over him. She was not taken from his feet, that she would be beneath him. She was taken from his side, close to his heart, beneath his arm, to walk beside him as a companion, a helper, an equal yet distinct counterpart. The word often translated as helper in the ancient text does not imply inferiority but strength. It is the same word used to describe divine aid, a force of support, power, and presence. This act of forming woman from man's side was a revelation, a pattern for the ages. It demonstrated that man and woman were designed to be joined, to be in harmony, to function not in isolation, but in unity. It was a declaration that neither was complete without the other in the original design of creation. The world has twisted this truth. It has reduced partnership to a battle of power. It has transformed unity into competition, harmony into discord. Yet, the original design speaks louder than the voices of the age. Woman was not made as an afterthought, nor as a servant, but as a purpose-driven creation, formed with intention, crafted with precision. In her creation, there was beauty, strength, and purpose. Just as the sun and the moon, different in function, yet working together, just as the ocean and the shore meet to create life, just as the melody and the harmony join to form a song, so too was woman made to stand beside man. Neither above nor below, but alongside. The body itself reveals this mystery. The side where she was taken from is a place of protection and nearness. The rib that was removed to form her is a part that protects the heart, a part that provides strength to the core of the body. This was not by accident. It was a sign that woman was meant to be near to the heart, a guardian of life, a presence of strength. Yet, in the rebellion of the world, this design has been obscured. Some have sought to subjugate, to distort the partnership into control. Others have sought to rebel, to reject the connection, to declare independence where there was once unity. But no rebellion can erase the original purpose. Even in the brokenness of the world, the echo of that design remains. It is seen in the longing for companionship, in the search for meaning in relationships, in the deep yearning to be understood and to walk in purpose. It is embedded in the soul, written in the very core of human existence. Men and women were never meant to walk alone, never meant to be divided, never meant to be in opposition. The woman was formed from man's side to stand beside him, to complete what was unfinished, to bring forth what was still unfulfilled. And though the world may resist it, deny it, or twist it, the design still stands, waiting to be restored. In the beginning there was harmony. Man and woman stood together, formed by divine hands, each carrying a unique role, each fulfilling a purpose that was greater than themselves. There was no conflict, no struggle for dominance, no battle of wills, only unity. They walked in the presence of their Creator, knowing who they were, knowing their purpose, knowing the beauty of their design. But then a voice spoke. A whisper entered the garden. It was not a voice of truth, but of deception. It did not speak of unity, but of division. It did not confirm purpose, but cast doubt upon it. And so, for the first time, a lie entered the world. This lie came subtly, not as an outright rejection of truth, but as a distortion of it. It did not deny that man and woman were created with purpose. Instead, it questioned the purpose itself. It planted the idea that they were lacking, that what they had been given was not enough, that they must reach beyond their design to find true fulfillment. And so they listened. The moment they accepted the deception, everything changed. The harmony that once existed was fractured. The man who had once delighted in his counterpart now looked upon her with blame. The woman who had once walked in security now found herself striving, searching, and struggling. And a separation that had never existed before was now present between them. This was the beginning of a war not of flesh and blood, but of identity. No longer did they see each other through the lens of unity, but through the lens of opposition. The man's role was distorted into domination. The woman's role was twisted into subjugation or rebellion. What was once a divine partnership became a struggle for control. From that moment, generation after generation has inherited this distortion. Societies have been built upon the brokenness of this first deception. Some have taken the path of oppression, seeking to diminish the role of woman, stripping her of the dignity and purpose she was given at creation. Others have taken the opposite path, seeking to erase the need for man, declaring independence from the design itself. Both paths are rooted in the same deception, for both deny the truth that was spoken at the beginning, that man and woman were created to walk together, each carrying a purpose that cannot be fulfilled alone. In the beginning, there was harmony. Man and woman stood together, formed by divine hands, each carrying a unique role, each fulfilling a purpose that was greater than themselves. There was no conflict, no struggle for dominance, no battle of wills, only unity. They walked in the presence of their Creator, knowing who they were, knowing their purpose, knowing the beauty of their design. But then the voice spoke. A whisper entered the garden. It was not a voice of truth, but of deception. It did not speak of unity, but of division. It did not confirm purpose, but cast doubt upon it. And so, for the first time, a lie entered the world. This lie came subtly, not as an outright rejection of truth, but as a distortion of it. It did not deny that man and woman were created with purpose. Instead, it questioned the purpose itself. It planted the idea that they were lacking, that what they had been given was not enough, that they must reach beyond their design to find true fulfillment. And so they listened. The moment they accepted the deception, everything changed. The harmony that once existed was fractured. The man who had once delighted in his counterpart now looked upon her with blame. The woman who had once walked in security now found herself striving, searching, and struggling. And a separation that had never existed before was now present between them. This was the beginning of a war not of flesh and blood, but of identity. No longer did they see each other through the lens of unity, but through the lens of opposition. The man's role was distorted into domination. The woman's role was twisted into subjugation or rebellion. What was once a divine partnership became a struggle for control. From that moment, generation after generation has inherited this distortion. Societies have been built upon the brokenness of this first deception. Some have taken the path of oppression, seeking to diminish the role of woman, stripping her of the dignity and purpose she was given at creation. Others have taken the opposite path, seeking to erase the need for man, declaring independence from the design itself. Both paths are rooted in the same deception, for both deny the truth that was spoken at the beginning, that man and woman were created to walk together, each carrying a purpose that cannot be fulfilled alone. The consequences of this distortion are seen everywhere. Relationships fractured, families torn apart, a culture that no longer understands the meaning of unity. The world tells woman that she must prove her worth, that she must fight for recognition, that she must reject her design to find freedom. And yet, in this pursuit, she is left unfulfilled because the very thing she seeks has been hers from the beginning. The distortion has also affected man, leaving him confused about his role, uncertain of his purpose, Burdened by either guilt or misguided authority, he too has inherited the consequences of the lie, struggling to find his place in a world that has rejected the order it was built upon. And so, the war continues. A war that began in the garden, a war that has played out in every generation since, a war that is not fought with weapons, but with words, with beliefs, with ideologies that seek to redefine what was once clear. But no distortion, no deception, no lie can fully erase the truth. The design still remains hidden beneath the confusion, waiting to be restored. And until that restoration comes, the battle rages on. Even the very foundation of creation, there was an order, a purpose, and a design. Man and woman were not formed as rivals, nor as competitors, but as counterparts, each with a unique role, each fashioned to complete what the other could not. They were not identical, yet they were equal in value. Different in function, yet united in purpose. The world often confuses equality with sameness. It teaches that to be equal, one must become identical, that differences must be erased rather than celebrated. But true equality is not about erasing distinctions. It is about recognizing the significance of those distinctions and how they work together in harmony. The sun and the moon are not the same, yet both are necessary to govern the day and the night. The right hand and the left are not identical, yet both work together to accomplish what one alone cannot. So it is with man and woman. From the beginning, the woman was created with a specific purpose. She was not an afterthought, not a mere addition to an already complete world, but a vital piece of creation itself. When man was first formed, he stood alone, but something was missing. It was not the animals that could complete him, nor the wonders of the earth. It was only when woman was formed that the picture of creation was made whole. She was called a helper, a word that in ancient language does not suggest weakness but strength. It is the same word used to describe divine assistance, the kind of help that strengthens, upholds, and enables one to fulfill their purpose. This was no passive role, no secondary function, but an essential and active part of creation. Yet throughout history, this truth has been distorted. Some have misinterpreted the role of woman as one of inferiority, reducing her to a mere servant rather than a counterpart. Others have gone to the opposite extreme, teaching that she must reject man entirely to find her identity. But both distortions miss the truth. She was not designed to be beneath man, nor was she designed to stand apart from him. She was formed to walk beside him, to complete what was lacking, to bring forth what he alone could not. Her presence was meant to be one of strength, wisdom, and influence. Throughout history, time and again, it is woman who has been the catalyst for great movements, the source of inspiration, the bearer of life itself. She was formed with the ability to nurture, to bring forth, to cultivate what has been entrusted to her hands. She was created not as a reflection of man, but as a unique and powerful being, endowed with gifts and callings that were meant to complement, not compete with, those of man. This design is seen even in the physical nature of man and woman. One is built with the capacity for strength and endurance, the other with the ability to nurture and sustain life. One is given a nature that seeks to conquer and protect, the other a nature that seeks to cultivate and preserve. Neither is complete without the other. The strength of man is not meant for himself alone, just as the nurturing nature of woman is not meant to stand in isolation. The world tells woman that she must choose between her strength and her purpose, that she must either conform to the mold of passivity or reject her role altogether. But the truth is that she was never meant to choose between these things. She was created with both. She was formed with power and gentleness, with wisdom and humility, with boldness and grace. Her purpose is not to replace man, nor to be replaced by him, but to walk in the role she was designed for. She is neither inferior nor independent, but an irreplaceable part of creation itself. And though the world may attempt to rewrite this truth, the original design remains unchanged, unshaken, waiting to be restored. The world has redefined strength. It has taught that to be strong is to stand alone, to rely on no one, to seek power at any cost. It has painted independence as the ultimate goal, convincing both men and women that needing one another is a weakness rather than a strength. But the true nature of strength is not in standing apart, it is in standing together. From the beginning, strength was never meant to be wielded for self-exaltation. It was not given to be used against one another, but for one another. When man and woman were created, their strength was found in their unity, in the way they worked together, in how they supported, lifted, and completed each other. Their strength was not in competition, but in cooperation. Yet the deception of the world has turned strength into a weapon. It has told man that strength is found in dominance, that power is proven by control. It has told woman that strength is found in rebellion, that true power is in rejection. And so the battle began, a war between the very ones who were meant to be allies. Instead of standing together, they were set against each other, each seeking to prove something that was never meant to be proven. But real strength is not in isolation. A tree standing alone may be strong, but when the storm comes, it is the forest, rooted together, woven in unity, that endures. A single thread may be fine and delicate, but when woven with another, it becomes a cord that cannot be easily broken. So it is with man and woman. Their strength was never meant to be separate, but intertwined. The world also misunderstands love. It portrays love as something that is taken, something that is self-serving, something that demands to be fulfilled. It teaches that love is about power, about gaining the upper hand, about never allowing oneself to be vulnerable. But true love is not found in taking, it is found in giving. It is not about seeking power over another, but laying down one's own power for the sake of the other. True love is sacrifice. It is the kind of love that gives, expecting nothing in return. It is the kind of love that chooses humility over pride, unity over division, and peace over conflict. It is not based on conditions, not swayed by emotions, not controlled by circumstances. It is steady, unwavering, and unbreakable. Love was never meant to be a struggle for control. It was never meant to be a competition between man and woman, a battle to prove who is greater. Love was meant to be the highest expression of unity, a reflection of something greater than oneself. It was meant to be selfless, to be pure, to be a force that binds rather than divides. But when love is distorted, so is everything else. When love becomes about self instead of sacrifice, unity is lost. When love becomes about power instead of giving, division takes its place. This is what has happened in a world that has forgotten the true nature of love. True strength is not found in dominance, and true love is not found in control. Strength is found in standing together, and love is found in surrendering to something greater than oneself. The world may teach otherwise, but the truth remains. Strength was never meant to be used against one another, and love was never meant to be a weapon. They were designed to work together, to build up, to restore, and to bring back the unity that was lost. The world speaks much about freedom. It defines it as the breaking of limits, the casting off of restraint, the ability to do as one pleases without boundaries. It declares that true freedom is found in rejecting what was once believed, in redefining purpose, in reshaping identity. But this is not freedom. It is confusion. True freedom is not found in denying design, but in embracing it. A bird is free not because it refuses to fly, but because it was made to soar. A river is free not because it leaves its banks, but because it flows within them. A tree is free not because it uproots itself, but because its roots go deep into the earth, giving it strength to grow. Freedom is not the absence of order, but the fulfillment of purpose. When something walks in the way it was designed to, it flourishes. But when it rejects that design, it withers. From the very beginning, man and woman were created with purpose. They were not without meaning, not aimless beings drifting through existence. They were given roles, assignments, and callings that were not burdens, but blessings. They were formed with intention, shaped with care, and set in place to fulfill something greater than themselves. But then came the lie, the deception, that purpose was a limitation, that roles were a prison, that identity was a burden rather than a gift. This lie did not seek to free, but to destroy. It told man that his purpose was oppressive. It told woman that her calling was a chain. And so the pursuit of freedom became a pursuit of rebellion. Yet rebellion does not bring freedom. The branch that cuts itself off from the vine does not find life. It finds death. The hand that separates from the body does not gain independence. It loses its function. So it is when man and woman reject their design. They do not find liberty. They find confusion, emptiness, and restlessness. True freedom is not found in erasing the lines of distinction, but in understanding them. Man was created with a purpose, and when he walks in it, he finds strength. Woman was created with a calling, and when she embraces it, she finds fulfillment. It is not in casting off identity that freedom is found, but in stepping fully into it. The world has declared that to be free, one must fight against purpose, but the truth is the opposite. The fish does not fight against the sea, nor does the eagle fight against the sky. They embrace it, and in that embrace, they find the fullness of their existence. So it is with man and woman. They were created to walk in harmony, to complement one another, to fulfill a design that is not limiting but liberating. Yet many live bound not by roles, but by the fear of them. They believe that to accept purpose is to lose themselves, but in truth, it is only in accepting it that they can truly find themselves. The world's definition of freedom is an illusion, a shadow of what was meant to be. The one who walks in the fullness of their design does not live in chains. They live in the greatest freedom of all. Freedom is not about rejecting who one was created to be. It is about walking in that identity with boldness, confidence, and purpose. It is in that place, and only in that place, where true fulfillment is found. There is a longing in every heart, a deep, unspoken desire for something lost, something fractured, something that once was whole but is now divided. It is the longing for unity, for harmony, for restoration. It is the yearning for what was intended from the beginning, before the world was filled with conflict, before the battle between man and woman began. The brokenness is undeniable. It is seen in relationships filled with strife, in homes divided, in a culture that no longer understands what it means to walk together in purpose. Man and woman were created to stand side by side, to support, to strengthen, to complete one another. Yet instead of unity, there is division. Instead of partnership, there is struggle. Instead of complementing one another, they compete against each other. This division was not part of the original design. It was not the way things were meant to be. Man and woman were created in harmony, each with a role that did not diminish the other, each with a purpose that brought fulfillment, each finding strength not in standing alone, but in standing together. But when the first deception entered the world, this unity was shattered. No longer did man see woman as his perfect counterpart. Instead, he saw her as someone to blame. No longer did woman see man as her protector and partner. Instead, she saw him as one who could not be trusted. And so the division began. Since then, the world has sought to repair this fracture in its own ways, through ideologies, through shifting cultural norms, through redefining roles and relationships, yet none of these attempts have brought true healing. Some have only deepened the divide, turning the struggle into a battle for power. Others have tried to erase the distinction altogether, believing that unity can be achieved by making man and woman identical rather than complementary. But no amount of human effort can undo what was broken. The only way back is to return to the design that was established from the beginning. This is not a return to oppression or a return to inequality, but a return to unity. It is a recognition that man and woman were never meant to exist in conflict, but in harmony. It is an understanding that their differences are not a source of division, but a means of strength. It is a restoration of purpose, a reawakening of what was lost. Restoration begins not with culture, not with politics, not with changing laws or redefining identities. It begins within. It begins when man chooses to lead with wisdom, with love, with selflessness. It begins when woman chooses to stand in her strength, in her purpose, in her irreplaceable role. It begins when both reject the deception that has torn them apart and instead embrace the truth that was there from the start. This restoration is not about returning to an outdated way of thinking, but about reclaiming something that was never meant to be lost. It is about seeing man and woman as they were intended to be, not as competitors, not as enemies, not as beings struggling for dominance, but as two parts of a whole. It is about walking in the purpose that was given, not as a burden, but as a gift. The world will continue to offer its own solutions, but they will always fall short. True restoration, true healing, true unity can only come from returning to the foundation that was set from the beginning. Only then will the war between man and woman cease. Only then will they walk together as they were always meant to, side by side, in strength, in purpose, in harmony. Thank you for watching.